I've always made a point to say that if you haven't got the woman that you want in your life, it is because you're not the kind of man you need to be in order to attract that kind of woman. And that is what I believe the self-improvement sphere is trying to do. If you're trying to attract a high quality woman, why wouldn't she want a high quality man? So first and foremost, we have a lot of work to do, guys. We have a lot to get excited about in terms of improving our lives. And I wanted to talk about some ideas in which I believe I can and you guys can do in order to make sure that you are the man you need to be for the woman that you want in your life. And it's not always going to be the same. I think it's important for you guys to do some kind of exercise around this, and that way you can be better at discernment. You can have a clear-cut criteria in what kind of woman meets your needs and what woman doesn't. And that way you can stop going through this promiscuous style of life, diluting yourself sexually, wasting time, wasting energy, wasting money in some cases, and actually just focusing on improving yourself in order to get the kind of woman that you know that you deserve. So I'm going to talk about the feminine qualities desiring masculine principles first and foremost. Now, I'm leaning on the red pill a little bit here, but maybe the extreme form, the red pill. We know the masculine and feminine dynamic, right? If you want a woman who is typically feminine in her temperament, right? More submissive, more yielding to you, you are going to have to play the role of the other. You're going to have to be the provider. You're going to have to be more aggressive. You're going to have to be, maybe aggressive isn't the right word, assertive in your temperament, right? Now there's a problem here. That this is difficult for a lot of you guys watching this, right? Because most Western households need 2 incomes. In an ideal world, you want your woman to relax into her feminine if you want to be a masculine man, right? But unfortunately, the way the world is set up, she's going to have to play, she's going to have to get into her masculine in terms of making money, right? Being more assertive in the workplace, okay? Unless she's maybe taking a job where she can relate to her more feminine characteristics, which may be an option. Maybe it may be that you would want a woman who's typically in a caring role, such as a care practitioner, perhaps a nurse, perhaps a nursery practitioner, something like that, where she can convey her natural feminine temperament without having to take on some more aggressive, harsh, assertive nature of the masculine, right? So what can you do if you meet a woman and she's a lawyer or wants something out of those fields, right? I really believe that if you are so convinced that this is how you're going to live your life, I'm going to play the masculine role and my wife is going to play the feminine, wait until you can be that guy, right? And this is going to mean for a lot of you, you're not going to date for a long time. It means that you're going to have to work at creating your business and creating the kind of conditions where you can solely play that masculine role, that provider role. You need to make enough for 2 incomes plus the tax that the government's going to take on top of that. A difficult role to ascertain, but a rewarding one when you do. If not, I think it's important that you communicate your ideal relationship dynamic with a woman, right? And this might mean some sacrificing on your end, but I think clear communication is really important. You might find that you're having to compromise on traditional roles, in that perhaps your missus is working part-time somewhere. Maybe she's working a couple of days a week. You're working full-time, and on your business, or whatever your occupation is at that time. It might mean that if she's compromising on her traditional roles, you're going to have to compromise a little bit on your masculine roles, right? Now, I laugh at myself because a lot of you guys are watching these deluded people like Sneeko, like Fresh and Fit, like Andrew Tate, right? They're feeding you a very poisonous rhetoric about, the latter principle being the only way in which a relationship dynamic works. I do not believe for a second that it is unbecoming or undoing of a man to help out around the house, right? To help out with the washing up, to help out with the laundry. I do not believe that whatsoever. A lot of you guys are going to be doing that, right? That is the real world. What I'm trying to communicate is that you have a natural disposition to another kind of role in that relationship. Doesn't mean that you can't relate to that. It just means you have a preference and one which you are more, you find more fulfilling naturally, let's say, right? Temperamental. Now, I've kind of alluded to some of this already, but you're going to have a natural disposition to making decisions, right? A lot of you guys don't actually understand what it means to play the masculine role in a relationship, right? Some of you do, and that's completely fine. I will concede that sometimes I don't. I know, crazy, from a guy who's spouting the masculine theory rhetoric. But I remember in some relationships, I got very, very complacent and I wouldn't be leading, right? I wouldn't be creating things to do. It's difficult playing the masculine role. You have to constantly be moving the relationship forward. You have to be, booking holidays. You have to be actively pushing the relationship in different directions, right? And if you're not doing that, if you're not making sure that there are exciting plans and, events that are coming up that you're consciously directing, she's going to be getting into that energy, into that masculine energy, and she's going to be instigating things. You don't want that to happen because then she can't relax into her feminine, which was a big lesson for me. So you have to be, again, really leading the relationship. Let's talk about sexual behavior history and then maybe just a little bit on morals and values. So I'm going to talk about male body count here. Another ridiculous extremist red pill idea is that the more bodies you have as a man is something that should be appreciated, that should be celebrated, and your wife is, pardon me, going to be congruent with that idea. And even as I say that, maybe you're coming up with some mental resistance here. So, no self-respecting woman wants a man who has over 100 bodies, right? A thought experiment that you can do is, what would you like in your son-in-law? Do you want your son-in-law to be the toxic Chad or the promiscuous Chad? I think it's important that we dance between two lines here, right? We don't want to be sexually inept. And I think if you're religious, you can take the time to find out your sexual flow with your partner. That's completely permissible and probably more celebrated, in my opinion. We don't want to be sexually inept, but we want to be sexually deviant, right? And I believe a few long-term relationships is much more moral, much more character defining, character building, and what would you say? You can understand more about your sexuality with 3 long-term partners as opposed to 100 short-term, right? And that's just my personal opinion. You can let me know what you think about that. More questions that you need to be asking yourself about your wife. Will your wife be attracted to a man who has mixed his sexual fluids with over 100 women? Will your wife be attracted to a man who is spiritually inclined and devoted to God, right? Have self-respect over that aspect of him. The history doesn't speak to longevity of relationships as opposed to a future of multiple flings. Here's something really important that you guys have to remember, is that history dictates future behavior. Meaning, of course, you guys want a woman who's more on the purer side, who's had as few bodies as she can. And one of the reasons why, you can talk about paternity, right? Ensuring paternity. I get that argument. That's fine. But the number one reason why is that past behavior predicates future behavior. If you're with a woman that has slept with 100 women, that doesn't speak to a future of one relationship for a long period of time. It speaks to that behavior will continue, that you're just going to be another body, right? Ideally, it's difficult to find virgins nowadays, especially in the West, but ideally you want to be with a woman who's had a history of minimal relationships, but for longer periods of time. Because that history is going to speak to your future. And there is more likely that you're going to get a long, wholesome, loving, compassionate relationship predicated on mutual values if she's been with few people but for longer periods of time, rather than she's been with more people for fewer periods of time. Okay? And you don't want your woman to be easy. That's probably a crude way of saying it, but I think you get my meaning here, right? Here's another thought experiment with your son-in-law. Do you want your son-in-law to be Andrew Tate? Right? I know a lot of you guys fanboy over him. He said some good stuff and he said some terrible stuff, in my opinion. I don't believe that the model in which he's leading men forward is the correct one, to be completely transparent. That's just my personal opinion. But maybe you can ask yourself that, honestly. I think it's a fantasy a lot of you guys like. I think it's something to romanticize, right? I'm gonna, have my compound with several supercars and a harem of women around me. But if I want a wife, if I want a partner, if I want monogamy, is that something that my wife is going to respect, honor, find valuable? Only you know the answer to that. I don't. I'm just giving you the ideas. Morals and values. Speaking of morals and values, mutual attraction. I think it's really important that you understand that attraction is an ongoing thing in the relationship and it doesn't stop at courting, right? Part of the reasons of you keeping yourself healthy is to keep the attraction in play in the relationship. And I would expect the same in my woman, right? I think health is something so important. It's really important that you do not get complacent. In order for you to become the man women want to commit to, she has to see that you are also dedicated in that respect. I think men, by and large, are pretty good at that, though. Anyway, gentlemen, this has been an interesting chat. I really want maybe some feedback on here, and you guys can let me know, how you can be the kind of man that you want for your wife, essentially. These are really big questions, and I feel like they're questions that a lot of you guys don't ask and answer to yourself. So, but as always, these are just theories. Take what is valuable, discard which is not, and I'll bring you something else very, very soon. Take care.